So, is KAP, the Kundalini Activation Process, safe? And what happens when it goes wrong? First up, disclaimer, I've not gone through this process. I would never put myself through this process. And so, what I know about this process is just what I've heard from people reaching out to me, needing support because they've gone through the process, and also research online. Okay. And I'm answering this question from more of a broad spectrum understanding of what Kundalini awakening actually is because I've gone through it, lived through it, studied deeply in the traditions, and applied the practices and fully integrated what Kundalini awakening is. Okay, so is it safe? No, no, it's not safe. It's not safe. It's not safe. Like, why would you want to initiate a Kundalini awakening? That's the first question I have for people is why do you want to initiate a Kundalini awakening? Because most people, my sense is they're doing it because they think it's going to give them something. They think they're going to get something. They're going to become more of something. And in reality, when Kundalini awakenings, it is going to take everything. It is going to take everything that you think you are, and it is going to ask everything of you. So that fundamental misunderstanding of what is actually going on is a critical piece to understand. So if you're considering KAP, this is the first thing I'd say to you. Why? What for? What are you trying? What do you think you're going to gain? What do you think you're going to get here? Right? And then in terms of safety, so KAP is designed to induce like a fast, dramatic energy activation, often within minutes, right? Compared to traditional yoga practices, etc., which basically look at building gradually over years of preparation. And people say, oh, it's safe when it's guided by an experienced facilitator. But the thing is, it's not about the facilitator. Yes, I'm like, yes, yes, yes to experienced, trauma-informed, epic, amazing facilitators, right? So much yes to that. But you have to realize that the experience that will unfold is not about the facilitator. The experience that is going to unfold is about the human. It is about what they are carrying. It's about their particular karmic load. It's about all of their undigested samskaras and vikalpas. That is what is going to define what unfolds if a Kundalini awakening begins to happen. And even that is debatable. Like for some people, it's prana activation that's unfolding, right? And prana activations, they're starting to feel, or prana is starting to do things which can look dramatic, which can feel dramatic, but it's not actually necessarily a Kundalini awakening. So this is one of the challenges, right? Is we're throwing around these terms without really understanding what they are all about. And the thing is that Kundalini awakening activation process, KAP, is often marketed as like a shortcut to awakening, bypassing the years of groundwork, discipline, body preparation, nervous system capacity, etc., that traditional lineages consider essential. And why do the lineages consider these things essential? Because if Kundalini awakens before you have done all of this work and before you have rewired the system from the inside out, it can send you crazy, literally. And I know because that is what happened to me in 2004, spontaneous Kundalini awakening. Just war. And I'd been practicing yoga at that point for about 7 years, but it wasn't nearly enough to rewire my system so it could hold what happened. And I went all the way into psychosis. I ended up in a psych ward twice in August and September of 2004. And then I had to retrospectively bend. I spent the last 22 years doing the groundwork, doing all the practices. Like sometimes I'm practicing an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours a day to support the purification process that gets activated after Kundalini awakens, right? And so traditionally, the purification process would be done beforehand so that when Kundalini awakens, there is an ability for it to just move up the central channel, and it's a much cleaner, I'm going to say simpler process. But then, even if you read the texts from first person accounts of people that were deep in the traditions, like Swami Muktananda, for example, play of consciousness, he still goes through some pretty wild stuff after Kundalini activates. Now, the difference for him is he was supported by a guru. He had the teachings, he had the practices, he knew what was going on. And critical piece here, this is the critical piece that y'all just don't get. He knew how to relate to what was happening. And this is the piece that I see is missing in pretty much every single person that contacts me through my videos, through my articles, through my social media channels, and every single person that I work with one-on-one is they do not understand how to relate to what is unfolding in the purification process, right? They don't understand the map, the territory that they're now in, right? The Kundalini awakening map and territory, which is laid out in depth in the tantric traditions. They don't understand how to relate to it, how to relate to the teachings, how to relate to the practices, and they're in essence flailing in the dark, right? So is it safe? No, because of all these reasons, okay? And so what happens when it goes wrong? Well, I mean, define wrong for a start. I would say what happens if it does what it's promising to do? Because in a way, it's promising to awaken Kundalini, right? So what happens? Well, what happens when Kundalini awakening begins to unfold is it begins to purify your system. And purification means that all of the samskara, right? Samskara are the unresolved and undigested emotions from the past. It's the patterns, the behavior patterns that are running in your system, what we might call trauma in the medical model system, and also vikalpas, right? And beliefs, all the beliefs. So all of the stuff, right, that is often stored in the unconscious, that is locked away. So even though it's there, it doesn't impede with our ability to navigate day-to-day life. It doesn't impede with our ability to show up for work, to show up to parenting, to show up for relationships, etc. But when Kundalini awakening happens, the process starts, the purification process starts. And so all of that stored, locked away, and often unconscious material starts to come up often all at once so that it can be purified, not healed, purified, right? Alchemized, digested, dissolved, devoured, digested, and dissolved. You see? And so it doesn't mean that something's wrong if all of a sudden you're so fucked you can't go to work. It actually means the process is working, but you haven't done the purification work. All right. So everything moves so much faster than you're able to cope with, than you're able to handle. And because you're still trying to hold down a job, you're still trying to parent, you're still trying to be in a relationship, you're still trying to have your ordinary, normal life. But it's like, no, once Kundalini awakens, the whole point of it is a full surrender into letting her live through you as such, into letting life live you. And you may be in a job that you're clinging to for safety, security reasons that actually is not in alignment with your dharma, with your karma. And so you're trying to get back to work and do the thing that you want to do because you're attached to it. But the process itself is going, no, that's not the right thing for you. And so there starts to be this conflict that's like super like full on between the life you're living and the life that's ready to come through. And people say to me all the time, I just want to get back to my life. I just want to feel the way I used to feel. And so they're still in contraction, they're still in clinging, they're still in grasping, they're still in attachment. They're not even actually on the spiritual path per se, which is the dissolving of attachment, right? So you can see why it just turns into one freaking hot mess. You see? Okay. So often once there is this destabilization, which is really the purification process starting to unfold, the standard advice is like, oh, ground, oh, surrender, oh, self-care. But if grounding, surrender, and self-care is still happening from the, how do I describe this? The wrong frame, the wrong worldview, or not wrong, words are so tricky. Words are so freaking tricky. If the way that you are relating to what is unfolding is not beneficial for the actual purification process, you may think you're surrendering, but you're not really, right? You may, I mean, grounding may be happening, self-care may be happening, yes, but actual full, if someone genuinely surrendered, they won't say to me, I just want to get back to my regular life, because that is not surrender. Full surrender, full surrender. Oh my God, full surrender has had me on my knees multiple times. It has had me surrender attachment to all of the things in my life. Like And of course, we don't want to hear this. We don't want to know this. We don't want to know that this is what Kundalini awakening is all about, right? So I'm gonna speak. I want to ground this in very practical suggestions. And the reason I'm making this video is I had someone reach out to me today based on one of my Instagram posts about Kundalini awakening. This particular person had an awakening in March 2024 while attending a KAP session, right? And it totally smashed their system in minutes. And that 2 hours of bliss led her into a spiritual emergency with what she's calling heavy Kundalini syndrome for 2+ years, hardest time of her life, right? Almost a psych ward, suicidal tendencies, etc. It was hell, still is, a little better. Researched over, all around the world, spent all the savings, right? And grounding, surrender, self-care, and I just want my life and power back. All right, so this is the piece. This is the piece. I just want my life back. There is no back. There is no back once Kundalini awakens. There is only full surrender into what is unfolding, right? And this is when it is so beneficial to work with teachers that understand this process from the traditional texts, who have gone through it, who lead students through it. Yes, I'm an example of one of those teachers. And there are other teachers out there as well, right? I worked a lot with Christopher Wallace. Christopher Wallace, I don't think works one-on-one with students, but in terms of a teacher to connect with, he's incredible and he's amazing. He's a scholar practitioner and he lays out these teachings, these maps very clearly. There's an oral teaching he gives, the 9 stages of awakening. There was absolute, just, oh my God, so incredibly beneficial, right? A practice that has worked miracles for me is Uchata practice, which I learned from Christopher Tompkins, and I now do teach people as well. And reach out and ask about that. But if you're considering, I'm going to end on this, right? So for this person that messaged me, I actually responded to her with a DM, and my advice is really if this is where you're at, come work one-on-one with me, because that is what is going to make all the difference. Because when I'm working one-on-one with someone, I can support the shift in worldview, support the shift in perspective that is really needed to allow all of this to unfold with so much more ease. And then I can offer the teachings and the practices that are tailor-made for that person, because everyone gets stuck at different points, right? Everyone has a different belief system or different karma that is blocking them where they are, right? If you're considering doing KAP, the first thing I would do is question your motivation, your intention. Why? What for? What is it that you believe it is going to give you? Investigate strongly into that. And then fully accept the risk that if it works and you have a Kundalini awakening, that is going to be your life. That is going to be your life from that point onward. And that the rug could be completely pulled out from underneath who and what you are, from who and what you're doing. I mean, I've dedicated this is why I teach this now. This is why I mentor people in this now, because I wasn't capable or able to do anything else. All the ambition that I had about who and what I was going to be in the world, out the door. And I tried, believe me, I freaking tried. I clung like a motherfucker to who and what I thought I wanted to be with all of that ambition. And I just had to eventually completely surrender it to what was actually happening in front of me, right? So recognize that. If you are actively chasing a Kundalini awakening, are you ready? Are you ready to give your life to her, to Kundalini, to the goddess? Are you ready to surrender all of your attachments, all of your avoidance, all that you think you are, all of your self-images? Are you ready for that? And if you genuinely are on your hands and knees bowing before the goddess and you're like, yes, go ahead, go ahead. Make sure you've got good teachers, a good understanding of the tradition, of the teachings, of the Tantra tradition and teachings, the maps, the frameworks, and the practices that can hold you as you go through the process. That's what I've got to say. Let me just check my notes, see if there's anything else. Bum, 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 bum. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that now. Yeah, I'll make more. Leave questions, reach out. Let's keep the conversation going. And as I already mentioned a couple of times, I'm absolutely here to support those of you that are going through awakenings like this and need clear, grounded support. I'm your woman. Oh, yeah.